So can everyone hear me? Good? In the back? All right, good. So my name is Rob. He has given me a very good introduction. Thank you very much. So I'm going to be speaking today on PlagueScanner, and this is an open source project that has been in the works probably for about 2.5 years. It has coagulated into something real in the past 6 months. And I've been going to a number of other conferences and giving talks on it. And this is the latest iteration of it. So who am I? I'm a senior threat intelligence researcher for Threat Connect. We're in Arlington, Virginia. My contact information is at the bottom. That's my Twitter handle and email address. I can also give you a card later after the talk so we can contact each other later. So let's just go into the problem here. So you have an unknown or malicious binary, and you want to scan it with as many AV engines as possible. So there are a couple of ways that you can do this, a couple of options available to you. So the first option available is to upload the binary to a multiple AV scanner site online, and we all know which ones these are. There are a few of them. There's a growing number of them. People will actually put up a version of Cuckoo Sandbox and put it online and then just collect binaries from it. It's a very good technique for gathering binaries. And let me repeat that. It's a very good technique for gathering binaries. So they are gathering the binaries that you upload. So let's say you've got a weaponized PDF, and we'll see some of that in a moment. You don't necessarily want to upload that to any of these online sites because they are gathering the binaries, and you don't know who they're sharing those binaries with, who has access to that data. You have to trust them, and I don't trust anybody. So the second solution is to buy your own AV scanner engine system, and these are very, 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 very expensive. And when I say very expensive, I mean very, very, very expensive. On the order of $80,000 a year type expensive. So that's not really an option for small guys. That's an option for a giant enterprise, but a giant enterprise might have other resources available. So that's not an option that's viable for me. So solution number 3 is to create an open source multiple AV scanner framework and share it with the world. Some of my favorite projects out there. So let me give you a few real-world use cases for this. So I originally had spoken with a number of people at DEF CON about this, and that's where the whole idea came from, and I'll get to that in a minute. But my use case is Blue Team, so targeted weaponized PDFs and other types of documents with corporate data embedded in there as bait. Those are the types of things that this is meant for. However, when I was speaking at ShmooCon this year, I spoke with a group of people who work on pen testing, and they develop their own malware, and they want something like this because they don't want to share their targeted, custom malware that they're going to use on a red team engagement with, the general public of the variety of online sites. So that's a different use case that I hadn't really thought about, but it's a valid use case for this. Obviously, I don't want to have adversaries looking at this and using it, but it's open source. If they want to go pay for all of it and put it together, it's out there. So let me give you a quick demo of what I'm talking about here and what sort of things you would use this for. So I recorded the demo just to appease the demo gods. So as you might recognize, this is a reverse engineering malware workstation environment. I have a number of tools. Go ahead and take a screenshot if you don't know all those tools. You might see some that you don't know. You might see some that you do know. So this is, I've got Process Hacker open on the right. Some people use different tools. They're all essentially the same thing as Task Manager, but on steroids. So let's watch what happens. So you can see in Process Hacker, everything looks nice and clean. Hold on. Let me pause this and move that down so you can see Process Hacker fully. Okay, so this is the PDF attachment to an email, and boom, current literature? That's very interesting. That's from 1891. And what makes this really interesting is this PDF is 6 pages long. That's actually very rare for malware to weaponize something that's more than just 1 page. Usually they just have 1 page to kind of, bait you into clicking or opening or remaining there. So this is actually a 6-page document. And this came in on a sensor that I have, and it actually has access to one of those online AV scanner engines. And let me pause this for a second so we can just go over that for a second. So I collected this from on one of those online AV scanner engines where someone else had uploaded it, right? So this doesn't exactly look too scary. However, this piqued my interest, and I thought, this is a 6-page document. This is an unusual way of weaponizing something. So I started looking into it. I reverse engineered this, and I'll actually hit play again. So as you can see down here, there is an extra DLL host, and also I will highlight it in a second. Come on. There we go. So that's the extra DLL host, and then it is also running still a copy of the reader, which is the built-in 8.1 PDF reader for Microsoft. So both of those are, the DLL host is running, that's actually the malware, and then, and the reader is still running. It didn't shut down properly, even though I clicked shut down and close. So it definitely affected the reader process. Also, I'm going to highlight, this is one of the reasons why I like Process Hacker, because you can go into a running process and run strings on its memory. So that's actually a very cool feature. So let me pause this, and let's go back to the presentation. So that's actually a little bit worrying, what's going on there. So I went and took an SSDeep hash, and if anyone's familiar with SSDeep, it's called a piecewise hash or a fuzzy hash, and what it does is it takes the entire binary file and it essentially chops it up into pieces and then takes sub-hashes of the different parts of it. And what this is good for is instead of having like a SHA-1 or an MD5 hash, you can then take this hash and then see how similar the file that you have is to a group of other files that have had an SSD hash done to them. So in mathematical terms, the two hashes kind of make a three-dimensional distance between the two files. But essentially, you are looking for other files that are similar to this file. So fortunately, the same online scanner engine that I found this file has a way to search via SSDeep. So I took the SSDeep of this file and looked for other files that are similar to it. So this is where things get very scary. This happened last week, and this is all very new stuff. So I looked at some of the scanner results for this, and it turns out that this piece of malware is called ersnif. You might be familiar with it if you do malware analysis, maybe not. My focus is crimeware, and that's one of the types of crimeware out there. And this is a new variant. There was a Trend Micro paper about it back in January, and what it does is after you are infected, it looks in your hard drive and weaponizes all of the PDFs that you have on your hard drive, and then just lets them sit there, right? So then, when you go to get your invoice that you want to send to your client, you just drag the invoice to your email and send it off, and you've unwittingly sent them a copy of ersnif, which is a weaponized copy of your PDF, which is tailored to them almost perfectly, because the malware author doesn't even have to think about what to tailor to the target. So let me show you. This is going to look like a Freedom of Information Act request, because I have redacted a lot of these. But this is where things get very scary, because I pulled all of these copies off of the online malware scanner. So this is a certificate of analysis for some sort of chemical. No idea what it is. And then this is a check register from a company. I've redacted the name of the real estate agent, and this is a invoice for parts for a car at a car service center. So these are the sorts of things that you save on your hard drive, right, and keep for later. These are the sort of things that this piece of malware is weaponizing. This is a packing list for something. Oh, and also, by the way, this one. One of the things that I did with this set of documents was sort of a look into the idea of who the victims are, and I could tell by the collection of documents who the kind of the initial infection points were, because any business document essentially has two companies involved with it, a sender and a receiver, and so by taking all of these and making a spreadsheet of the senders and receivers, I can see that, okay, this person has this company is in common with all of these different documents, so they must have been the initial vector, and then this company and this company. And so the company here is actually a manufacturer of, I'm not familiar with the type of stuff they make. I have some of their glossies, which were weaponized. But those they make little metal, machine parts and stuff like that. But I know who their clients are because this document is a packing list that they sent to a major car manufacturer. So a major car manufacturer is one of their clients. And then this is the real estate agent. So these are copies of their checks that were weaponized. Also very, very scary. And then this is just an email talking about, I believe this is talking about making a donation to the Humane Society. And then here is that the check to the Humane Society? No, that's a check for a real estate agent. There's actually, I didn't include the check, but there's actually the check to the Humane Society that they'd weaponized. So one of the very frightening parts about this is, so I know now that there are three companies from these documents. There's a real estate agent, there's a manufacturer of machine parts, there is a shale oil fracking company doing shale oil rigs in Pennsylvania, and then there's a supplier for EMT and fire equipment in Montana. So those are the ones that I figured out were the targets of the attack. So these are the types of documents that you don't want to upload to an online AV scanner, right? I think it should be obvious that you don't want to upload these. And one thing that's interesting with these AV scanners is they track who it is that's uploading it. So they see the IP address that's uploading it. If you have an account with them, then obviously it's connected to that. So each one of these came in from the web interface. So these were people at one of these companies or a company that was doing business with them and was sent one of these, and they probably just got an email with an attachment that was strange and then submitted it to the online AV scanner, and then I got a copy of all of them. So, and myself and lots of other people, including AV companies and security companies in other countries, you have no idea where the stuff is going. So, bad idea. So the onwards to the next use case. So the next use case I have is for red teams. And how many in here are pen testers? 2, 3, 4. Okay. So do you guys use tailored malware in any of your engagements? Yes. We got a yes over here. Would you want to share that piece of malware with anyone that's not... Exactly. Very good answer. So, and I just wanted to highlight, because when I've given a talk at when I gave the talk at ShmooCon, I was actually followed by one of the guys that is in Veil Framework, one of the authors of Veil Framework. So this is a very great piece of software for pen testing, And what it does is you take your piece of malware and you can use Veil Framework to obfuscate it in ways so that it avoids being detected by AV scanners. So the Veil Framework folks were saying, we've thought about making something like PlagueScanner for a while, but now you're making it, so great. But they're really great guys, and that's actually a great project. Backdoor Factory is another one where you are creating backdoored binaries that are real binaries from a system. So you can take, I saw their demo at DerbyCon, which was fascinating. He put a backdoor in Safari, the actual Safari executable on a laptop, and so it called back to his C2. So Backdoor Factory is another one where if you're making a backdoored binary, you want to make sure that it's not going to be shared out, and you can get you're not sharing how you backdoored it. Side note: Backdoor Factory has been in the news, and it might not have been in the news directly, but it was an instance of Backdoor Factory was reported. I don't know if has anyone heard of OnionDuke? OnionDuke, it's a piece of malware, OnionDuke. So OnionDuke, you probably heard of OnionDuke, but you didn't know it by the name OnionDuke. So about 6 months ago, there was a Tor exit node discovered that was backdooring all of the binaries that are going up and down through it, right? Did you hear about that? Okay, so that was actually someone in Russia that had downloaded a copy of Backdoor Factory and installed it and combined it with a Tor exit node and created a fun malware transmission system. So that's one use case of that. But so this is how I formulated the plan for PlagueScanner. I don't know if you recognize this bar, but it's shutters at the Rio. So this is where I was talking to a number of other security heads and DEF CON con-goers about what to do in these different, what to do with this problem, and came up with the idea of PlagueScanner. And I was actually curious at the time why this is sort of something that seems obvious to me, to have an open source project to do this sort of thing. But I realized the reason why it probably didn't happen yet is most people who are open source advocates and big-time open source people, they kind of get hives when they look at closed source software. They don't want to work with stuff like that. So they wouldn't want to write a layer of open source over lots of commercial software. That's not necessarily the first thing that comes to mind when you are a open source guru. So my background is security. I love open source, and so this seemed obvious. And so after about 2 years of mulling it over, I finally put some parts together and started the project. So let's go over the basic components of PlagueScanner. So it's all written in Python 3. Every component is Python 3. I try in everything that I do to not use Python 2 anymore, and only if there's a import that I have to use an old library or a library that still uses Python 2, I will use Python 2. But Python 3. This uses the YAPC plugin system. This is a plugin system that you might recognize from other malware analysis project called Mastiff. They use YAPC. Mastiff is a static malware analysis framework. So they had a good idea, so I took it. And then ZeroMQ is similar to RabbitMQ. If you're familiar with that, it's just a little bit faster, a little bit easier to use, a little bit cleaner. So I use ZeroMQ for message queuing, and that is how the malware sample and then the code to run the malware sample is transmitted between the core and then each one of the AV scanner VMs. So I used QEMU originally, and I added, about a month ago, I added VirtualBox virtualization for this, so it supports both VirtualBox and QEMU. The reason I like QEMU is it has kernel same-page merging, which is a type of memory deduplication. So if you have 2 or more VMs, and the VMs all have a set of memory pages, VM X and VM Y, if they're running the same operating system, have almost the same set of memory pages. So why take up that much space in the host operating system? So kernel same page merging works at the host level, and so if you have one identical page of memory, it's actually shared among all of the VMs that have that same page. So VirtualBox has a similar technology. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but it's in a further slide. Unfortunately, the reason why I used QEMU is that VirtualBox under Mac OS, for some reason, VirtualBox's version of KSM does not work. So they don't have they don't have that technology supported under Mac OS. So if you run VirtualBox under Mac OS, all of your VMs have an entire, you have this ever-growing repetitive list of memory pages. I use the Pillow Python image library, and this is for taking screenshots of pop-up windows in the VMs. And then I use Tesseract OCR, and we'll go into why this is necessary a little bit later. The report output is JSON. I don't like XML. XML is very last year. So the output is JSON, and then the reports can optionally be stored in Elasticsearch, and then you can do nice graph stuff and look at historical AV engine results. So the whole concept is that you bring the scanners, so it's up to you to buy the licenses and get them installed correctly and follow the directions and read the manual of the manufacturer of those. That is not my problem. But I bring the plugins for each one of the scanners, so I make sure that it's instrumented properly. I make sure that there's each one of these. Essentially, the core of this is each one of these is a regex, or a set of regexes that takes the output from said AV scanner, pulls out the data that we need, and then sends all of that to a central core, and then creates a master JSON file for that. So I have identified four general types of scanner engines out there. So the first one is open source. I believe, unless anyone knows of any further ones, I believe there's only one member of this category, that would be ClamAV. And then the second is has a Linux version available. So many commercial types of malware and AV scanners have a Linux version available. And if there's a Linux version available, that means there's a command line. And if there's a command line, it means it's easy for me to run it and get a regex and pull out all the data that I need. So Linux, and there are some companies that provide a FreeBSD version and other BSDs and other Unixes and stuff like that. But I'm focused on Linux. Just make it easy, make one that and there isn't one. There are no AV engines that make scanners for a different Unix that don't make one for Linux. So I've focused on Linux. The third type is a Windows-only scanner. There's a lot of those out there. There's only a version of it in Windows, and the good ones are number 3. Those are the ones that have a command line interface available. Again, I would prefer not using Windows, but where I have to use Windows, if I have a command line, then I get a pile of text, and then I can use a regex on it, pull it all out, and do the same thing I did with the Linux version. The fourth type is where there's a GUI only. These are the real nasty ones and difficult to work with. So that brings me to optical character recognition. So that fourth category of malware or an AV scanner engine is the one that requires OCR. So, so with OCR, you take a screenshot in the VM of the pop-up that says, "Hi, you're infected with ursnif," or "Hi, you're infected with whatever," and take a screenshot of that, carve out the areas that have the text that I want, and then run that through OCR, and then I get a pile of text that I run a regex on, pull that to the central core, and then add that into a JSON document. This component of PlagueScanner is not fully working yet. This is a tough. This is a more difficult problem than you would think, but it is under construction. So this is the basic architectural diagram for PlagueScanner. There is the submission, processing, and reporting component at the top center. I've called that the core, so that's PlagueScanner core. There is an Elasticsearch option, so this is something also that you would set up yourself. I'm not going to concern myself other than making sure that the code to write to Elasticsearch is correct, but where your Elasticsearch is and all that sort of stuff is up to you. So you have to create your cluster yourself. The message queue is that amorphous blob in the center, and that's 0MQ, and that sends the messages between the core and each one of the variety of VMs. And let me just touch on one point about the way that I have designed this. So each one of those VMs in the bottom has an agent which is listening for the 0MQ messages. And so each one of those agents is actually dumb. So they don't know anything about the type of VM that they're in. They have no idea about what type of AV scanner they're supposed to deal with. And the reason I did this was to make it easy on the end user for setting up the whole thing. The end user shouldn't have to have like a huge pile of agents that they have to figure out, okay, I've got a CLAM AV agent here, and then which one of these VMs is my CLAM AV, and I got to put that in here and make sure that this all works. No. So the ultimate, the end goal is each one of these is a dumb agent, and this is actually very unsafe. So you need to make sure that wherever you've put PlagueScanner is protected, outside of PlagueScanner itself. So you need to make sure that this is on a separate network, because I make no effort whatsoever to check the code that those agents are running. So they get a message that contains the binary that they are going to scan, and then they get a blob of Python script, and then it just runs the Python script, and it puts the binary in a set location, runs the script, and then the script will go and look for the binary, run the right scanner engine, do the text processing, and then send a JSON message back to the core. So that's very dangerous because I do no checks whatsoever. So if you're running PlagueScanner out there and have it open to the internet, that would be very bad. If you have it like on your network, that also is fairly bad because someone might discover that you have this and then just start running arbitrary code on the VM. So make sure that you've protected this properly. But this also leads me to the next part. So I had a few lessons learned about the development of this. So when you're developing a distributed application such as this that uses a message queue, and you have lots of little VMs out there and then a central core, so when you're doing development, that adds time to each iteration of a change in the code. So when you're sitting there and you're banging away at code, and then you want to run and see if the thing that you did works or bombs, when you hit run, it then has to send that message out to all of these things, and this stuff has to come back. And I'm impatient, and I don't want to even wait that few seconds or whatever. So, or actually, it's more than 15, 20 seconds. So I don't want to wait that long. I want to just go, bam, see if it runs, bam, see if it runs. So I have implemented a sort of development version of the entire system, which works backwards from a smart agent and makes each one of there's an alternate agent where each of those agents is actually smart and has the entire code in there so that I can work on that VM itself, not worry about the core, not worry about anything else, have a binary in the proper location, and then bam, just keep running that particular agent. And then it has a REST API so that when I've got that one working, then I can kind of back up, run the core goes out and asks all those REST APIs to do their stuff, and then gets back the results. So then the second step of this is to write the YAPC plugin. So once I've got a plugin, once I have an agent that works properly, carve out the proper piece of code from it and drop that into a YAPC plugin in the other version. So that's the development process. The carving out and the making of the AppC plugin might be a little bit more cumbersome, and the setup of it is a little bit more cumbersome, but it makes it easy for someone that doesn't like to wait when they're doing development. So I mentioned some of the cool features already, and I wanted to highlight some of these, some more of them. So kernel same page merging, as I said, it allows many VMs to share memory pages. This is the name of that technology in VirtualBox. It's called Page Fusion, and if you go into VirtualBox's document set and just grep it for Page Fusion, you'll find the section on it and how to set it up. I don't think you have to set it up, but you can look in there and just double check. I use Mac, so actually I don't necessarily use VirtualBox for much of this stuff. So ZeroMQ is a very fast message queuing system. Elasticsearch is a good way to visualize and store and process and have a NoSQL, basically a NoSQL-esque database of your results. So one of the reasons why this is important is, let's say you get a binary that is new to you and it doesn't get detected by anything. So that's a little bit frightening, right? But as a researcher, you may want to know or graph when different scanner engines began detecting it and see, who was better at detecting it, who might be following whom, because 3 or 4 of them might detect it all at the same time on a certain day, or maybe one of them got it, and then a few days later, a lot of them got it. So you want to be able to highlight who it is that really got the good information on it. So you want to be able to run the scan over and over and over, and then take all of those scan results and plug them into Elasticsearch so that you can see the trending of virus scanner results. Also, another thing that this is good for is, let's say I have a sample and I don't necessarily want to run it against a malware library to find things that are related to it. So, for example, I can take, there's three major hashes that are good for this type of work. One is called import hash, one is called PE hash, and one is SSDeep. So each one of these is a way to find related malware. SSDeep I described earlier, it's a piecewise hash. And then import hash takes a hash of the import table of the malware, and then it finds other malware that has a similar or matching import table. So, or it's set of imports. Import table, some of the stuff may not actually be in the import table, by the way. So it takes a set of the imports. And a PE hash takes a hash of components of the PE header. So the whole idea here is to find other malware that's related to your piece of malware. So those searches might find things that are known, or not necessarily known, but are by a test similar to malware. However, there might be other copies of that malware that do not fit that model, that don't have a common SSDeep, don't have an import hash, don't have a PE hash. However, you have a host of AV scanner companies that are out there working day and night on lots and lots and lots of malware. They may have decided that this piece of malware is related to your piece of malware, but the two of them don't have a common import hash, don't have a common PE hash or SSDeep. So there's no way for you to know if you have a malware library without looking through your samples and already have seen that one to connect the two. But you could have had your entire malware library run through PlagueScanner, had all the results in Elasticsearch, and then done a free text search for the name of a piece of malware, and then found all of the other. So if let's say you have run yours through here and it says, "Hi, I'm ersnif." So then you search for everything else that's ersnif in there, and you'll get samples that may not have a common import hash, may not have a common PE hash, and may not have a common SSD. So you'll have other things to do research on and kind of figure out like who's doing what and who's related to who. So that's a very powerful feature of the software. So there are a number of open issues in here. One of the major problems that I ran into is that so I keep all of this at a cloud, cloud VM service. So one of the problems with that is even though they're like 2 cents an hour to have your VM, if you have 2 cents an hour but you've got lots and lots and lots of VMs running together, that adds up after a while. And the problem with combining them all into one VM or stacking them in any way, shape, or form in that way is that AV scanners don't play well with each other. They actually look for each other, and they say, if you install AV scanner X, it will say, dude, there's AV scanner Y right there. I'm not going to let you install me unless you remove that one. Or some of them go, hi, I found AV scanner B. I'm going to just remove it for you, and then it's gone. So that doesn't make it easy to install many AV scanners together on the same machine. So what I've come up with here is to use Docker. There are a few other competing open source projects that do the same thing as Docker, but Docker is very commonly found, well supported, and fairly easy to use. What Docker does is it creates containers inside of a Linux machine, and those containers you can install software, and the software that's in that container can't see the software that's in another container. So it's sort of it's like a virtual. It's not a VM, but it's a virtual environment inside of a VM or inside of a bare metal machine. So you can install any number of different systems in those Docker containers, and they can all live on one VM, and it would save money, for cloud services. And if the next one, OCR, so OCR is still that's a very tough problem. It's difficult to get that correct, and so I'm still working on that. Daemonization, that's also something that I need to work on. The PlagueScanner core is still just a set of scripts where you run it and then it does its work and the information comes back. I would like to have it similar to, if you're familiar with Cuckoo Sandbox, anybody heard of Cuckoo? So Cuckoo actually sits there and runs, and then you submit jobs to it via the SQL database that it keeps its job list in. So I'd like to do something like that, like have like a list of jobs coming up, and then have a always running process that the jobs are submitted to, and then have that do the processing constantly. Another problem that these have, so scanner updating. This is sort of like herding cats. Like each one of these AV scanner engines wants to update in a different way, wants to update at a different time. And so they're all just, they're doing kind of random things, right, to update themselves. I don't have a way to watch, monitor, or, coordinate any of the updating. It just either doesn't happen and you have to do it manually, or it does its own automated updating and does it whenever it wants to, or it breaks or whatever. So what I want to do is have some layer where it watches for updates or controls updates for each type of scanner engine. And that's also valuable because it would give me a date or a timestamp when the update happens, and I can add that to the JSON document for each one of the scanner results. And that can be important because the scanner signatures that a scanner uses might be different at 4 p.m. than they were at 8 a.m. And that's important because at 4 p.m. it began detecting ersniff, and at 8 a.m. it didn't detect it. So I want to know, I want to be able to see that in the data and be able to look at those sorts of changes. So that's important to have in there, but it doesn't do that yet. That is also going to be a difficult problem because, as I said, it's like herding cats. They all want to go in different directions, and some of them want to go outside, some of them want to come back inside right after they go outside. So the next thing that is an open problem is resubmission automation. So I want to, and this depends on the daemonization step. I want to be able to not burden someone with a scanner result of 0. So if there's a scanner result of 0, you could have a flag set for that job that says, if it has 0, rescan on a schedule. Don't ask me, don't make me come back and do anything. Just rescan on a schedule until it hits a scanner result. And when it hits a scanner result, maybe send me an email or an alert or Nagios, turn something yellow or whatever. And so say like, hey, you've got a result. So I want to automate that so you don't have to really think about it. If you've got a lot of stuff coming in, you don't want to sit there and kind of fiddle with all of it. You want to be able to automate your processes. So have resubmission automation. Another feature, if you're familiar with, again, Cuckoo Sandbox or Thug. Thug is a low interaction honey client. It's for visiting a website, and then when you visit the website, getting the malware from it. So it pretends to be a variety of browsers, and it also pretends to have the correct Java version or Flash version or reader version that is necessary to be infected, and so it collects the binary from that visit. So these two things, Cuckoo Sandbox is a thing for sandboxing malware and getting all of the indicators of compromise out of it and getting its behavioral and other components. Cuckoo has lots more in it than that. But both of them have the ability to use a protocol called HP feeds. And I don't know if you're familiar with HP feeds, but it's part of the HoneyNet project. And what it is, it's a publish and subscribe protocol for sandboxes and collectors of malware data. So you can have instances of Thug and Cuckoo out there in the world, and then they can be producing binaries and also the binary analysis data, right? And it combines all of this into a feed, and then the feed can be subscribed to by other researchers. And HP Feeds actually has a social platform. It's a social network based on malware called HP Friends. And HP Friends, you sign up for accounts, and instead of it being Facebook where you message each other about like whatever you do and share photos and stuff like that, you share malware feeds with HP Feeds. So you have your friends in HP Friends, and then if you're a friend or if you're in a group, you get to subscribe to all of the HP feeds that group publishes. So it's an interesting concept. I would love to have HP feeds ability in PlagueScanner so that you could have a PlagueScanner instance out there, and then if you so choose, you could share all of the binaries and the AV results with your HP friends out there. That is not in there yet. It's just a hope that I get to that eventually. So let's do a demo of PlagueScanner. So sorry about the resolution on this. It's another recorded demo, and I apologize for the resolution. But okay, so on the right side, you see again that's Process Hacker. I love Process Hacker. This is just to show. I'm using it here just to show that the thing is working because this particular VM that we're looking at right now is a Windows VM, and it's running Trend Micro's scanner, and Trend Micro's scanner is a little bit wonky at sometimes, and it can choke on some of the binaries, and so I'll have to go in here and actually hit, click a button. So that's actually one of the things that I want to work on is have a button clicker. If a window pops up with a button, I just want to click the button. Who cares what it says? I don't just click it. Yeah, like a user, exactly. I mean, it's basically there's a button clicker in Cuckoo Sandbox, and it's actually called human.py. So, okay, so we're gonna watch the session here. So this is one of the scanner engines. It's Trend Micro, and then in a moment we will we'll take a look at core. Wish I had an easier fast forward. Okay, so this is the core. Let me scoot. Oh, don't skipped all the way ahead. Sorry about that. Just trying to move this up here where it's out of the way. Okay, so all right, this is the core, and at this point we're running samples through it. This here, b3k.exe, this is a binary for, that's the unicorn bug binary. I don't know if anyone had heard of that one, but it came out like last year, or no, earlier this year, I think. IBM researchers found it. It was a bug in OLE auth32.dll. This is a DLL that's loaded by everything. And by the way, it's not just loaded by a lot of things. It is also loaded by a lot of things going back to Windows 95. So I've heard people say, oh, if you want to be safe from malware, you would just run Windows 95. Oh no, this particular binary can exploit that DLL, the bug that's in that DLL going back to Windows 95, which is very interesting. So that's why they called it the unicorn. It's something that can exploit a bug that just hits all versions of Windows. It would have been really cool if it got Windows 3.5.1 or something like that, but you can only hope. Okay, so the other samples that I'm running through here, let's hit play. So it's going through each one of these particular each one of these particular binaries. And these that are running right now are the CVE 2015-0311. So this is a Trojan that was a Flash exploit from about a month and a half ago. This was the Flash exploit that was the O-Day that just appeared out of nowhere, and then Adobe took a little bit of time getting the fix out there, but there were binaries out there exploiting it in the wild. So this is that particular one, and as you can see, we've got the AV scanner results here. So each one of the scanners, you've got CLAM AV, and this is the CLAM AV result, ESET result. CLAM AV is just saying that it's a general exploit agent. It can't really tell you what it is. We've got ESET here, and it's giving you the actual CVE for it, and then Trend Micro finds nothing. These are just 3 demo scanners for it. I have a lot more. So at the moment, I've instrumented Bitdefender, ESET, Avast, Windows Defender, CLAM AV, Komodo, and that's it. So there's more on their way. Anyone who wants to join the project and help instrument AV scanners, please talk to me after this. I definitely need your help. It's a monumental task. I would like to have this at par with some of the main commercial and online scanners. So let me scoop this back over here. And so I wanted to just give a shameless plug for my employer. They are awesome. I started there in November, so I'm one of their newer employees. Threat Connect, it provides an advanced collaborative threat intelligence platform, and it has a free version, right? So a free level. So it's not, it's not. There's no paid. There are many levels of paid accounts, but all of you can sign up for a free account in there, and you can see the indicators of compromise that I share with the common community. You can also share your indicators. There's a lot of new malware that shows up that we put data for in the platform, and please sign up for an account. And if you want to talk about this, come find me after my talk. Looks like he said I had 5 minutes, so I'm cool. All right. So, any questions? Oh, sorry, I meant to say so. So my handle is Utkanos, and Utkanos is Russian for duckbill platypus. So leaving you with a baby duckbill platypus. Yes?
In your project roadmap, do you have any plans for mobile devices?
That's a very good question. I don't. I think doing mobile malware scanners would be a little bit redundant, except for a few. So there are a few AV scanners that are mobile targeted. They're specific to mobile and don't have a version that's Windows or Linux or anything like that. So I would like to. However, that would require putting up a Android, for Android at least, the Android SDK and running it. You can run Android SDK and have like a little VM, and you can run your. That's actually how I run my mobile malware in.
Real quick, you can look into Genunotion, which is actually Android on top of VirtualBox.
Oh.
So if you're already doing VirtualBox stuff, it's just click install Galaxy S5 and huge list.
Awesome. I will, after the talk, I'll come get that info from you. Yes, so I do want to do mobile, but right now, I mean, I've already got like a lot of upscope, so I'm trying to just get the core of it done, and then I can start working on upscope. But very good point. I'll make sure if you want to come talk to me, I'll let you know when it's ready. Any other questions?
So. You probably have way more experience with this than I do, but actually getting multiple AV engines onto a single code, have you tried throwing an exception list for all of them?
So that's another good point, and no, I have not begun trying to, and you're talking in the Windows world, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have not begun trying to shoehorn multiple AV scanner engines onto the same box. I would love to, and if you have any ideas, please let me know. So I had focused first on the Linux area, and Docker just seems like the easy button for doing that. Any other questions? I would love to have Docker for Windows, but it's based on a Linux only component. So yes. Awesome. I mean, Windows is not my favorite thing, but Docker and the concept of Docker makes things better, makes everything better. Any other questions? All right, so I have some swag. Woo! So lanyard, who wants a lanyard? Lanyard. Another lanyard. And then this is so since I'm so far from home, I brought you a Delaware BSides shirt. So who wants a Delaware BSides shirt?
You should say the size on it.
It's a large, I think. And a Threat Connect shirt with that all the way in the back. No interceptions allowed. Because I do have another one.
The smaller one, I'll take it.
I think they're both the same size. Got another one. You want it over here? Anyone over here want it? All right, all the way there, orange. All right. Actually, wait. You get this one. You don't know me. Pass that one back there. All right. Thanks, everybody.